What's up, New York? Welcome back to another episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky Keeler back here with you once again for another great Thursday here in the Big Apple. And guess what? It's football tonight. We have preseason action. The Giants, after fighting with the Lions all week, will actually get to fight with them. Hopefully not a lot of fights on the football field. Even though there's not a lot of starters playing tonight, there should be some good action going on, and maybe some key position battles or some key matchups to watch. The Jets are in action Saturday afternoon against Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. They get a receiver back off the PUP list. So much going on with the Jets, and we'll talk about some position battles to watch as well as we're getting close to the start of the NFL season. Meanwhile, in baseball, the Yankees are rolling again, close to in first place in the American League East. They're starting to win series, they're starting to get contributions, but how do they fix Aaron Judge being intentionally walked so much? The Mets on a crazy 10-game road trip for 3-3 as they get set for River game this afternoon against Colorado. We'll talk about what's going on with them. The Liberty are out in Paris at the Olympics with Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu taking on their coach in the semifinals. We'll preview that. We'll talk Jalen Brunson being the captain. And also, it's a local matchup for a trip to Williamsport tomorrow night between New Jersey and New York. We'll preview all that next on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. We'll see you in just a minute. And again, welcome back, everybody, to New York State of Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. Rick Keeler here with you today on a great Thursday in the Big Apple. Of course, it's been raining in the Big Apple this entire time, which I think we get more rain in the Seattle show coming up in a couple of hours. I think we're starting to rival that. But I digress. Again, follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at IE Sports Radio. If you miss any part of this show or you just want to hear me talk again, go to Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that fancy stuff. Get your podcast. We have individual show pages as well over on IESportsRadio.com. So you can go to IESportsRadio.com/New York State of Sports, where we've been running some awesome shows for the last 10 years. It's been fantastic. We got great guests, great shows from all of our local networks, such as New York. It's really awesome. We have cool merch, which we'll talk about later. You can follow me on X at Reginator555. You can follow the show at NY State Sports IE. So please feel free to interact both either on X or on YouTube here in the comments section, which is where we have some always good fun. We got Mr. Larry B's in the house. We got Mr. Ralph from Pittsburgh, the Yinzer Report, and then Alden, always Arizona Sports. So we're all over the country today here in the Big Apple. So before we dive into some football tonight, which I know what you're all looking forward to, we're going to talk about some of the snack you can have while watching the football game tonight, little Planet Jerky, and then we'll hear from Seal the Deal Wax Seals. We'll take a brief time out, and we'll be right back after this.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
And welcome back here on New York State of Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Again, check out our awesome sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, because it's going to be football season. I'm going to want to have a snack while I'm watching the Giants and the Jets play on Sundays. Planet Jerky's got to be the place I go to get some awesome jerky. And if you're looking to maybe invite somebody to your football party, why don't you use one of these awesome invitations from the Seal the Deal Wax Seals? Really some awesome stuff going on over there. Of course, you're looking for some cool IE Sports merch to wear while you're watching the game. IESportsRadio.com/shop. Got hats, shirts, all that fun stuff. Again, everything IE Sports Radio when you go to IESportsRadio.com. So, yes, we do have NFL preseason tonight. A couple games on the docket in the NFL. Panthers, Patriots being one. Of course, locally here, the New York Giants hosting the Detroit Lions at MetLife Stadium, 7 o'clock Eastern on Channel 5 if you're here locally in New York and New Jersey. I don't know where else it might be, but chances are if Panthers, Patriots, maybe it's blacked out or something like that, you might be able to get it. And it's been a really chippy week at joint practices. So the Lions and Giants were fighting so much that the NFL decided to fine both teams $200,000 for all the craziness with joint practices. And look, you're going to have fights with these kind of things. Because think about it, you're in training camp and you're fighting with each other, and now you finally get to actually hit somebody for the first time in a while. Those things are going to happen. You just hope they don't lead to punches and all those things. And you get why the NFL is tired of seeing in the headlines, oh, this fight at joint practice. Oh, this guy took his helmet off, or this guy did that. Like, while the NFL loves being in the news, I don't think they love being in the news for that. I think that's where the NFL sends a message here. We don't tolerate this. They throw out a fine. Both teams pay it. But it's a little crazy, in my opinion. I don't see why you have to fine essentially 6 digits in fines for both teams. So, but it should be a fun one tonight. Sadly, not a lot going on in terms of stars tonight. The Lions are not going to play a lot of their regulars. Jordan Ronan from ESPN said earlier today, it sounds like no Daniel Jones tonight, no Malik Neighbors tonight, which kind of stinks if you're looking to tune in and actually watch Malik Neighbors for the first time, but that's why there's preseason. The Giants also don't have joint practices next week before they play the Texans, so maybe you see the starters more next week. But despite that, there are some Giants that we should be keeping an eye on tonight. And I'm going to start first off with the tight end position and Daniel Bellinger. Now, the Giants right now, it seems only tonight, might have 3 tight ends in action. Chris Manhertz being one, Theo Johnson, the rookie out of Penn State, and Bellinger. Bellinger's a guy that we talked about when Darren Waller retired, can bring a good amount to the passing game, which the Giants are desperately going to need out of that position. They drafted Johnson to be that downfield threat, and Bellinger can kind of do a little bit both of blocking and catching. I think that's a big key. He's got a chance to kind of carve out a niche for him tonight, so I'm interested to see how much he gets in with either Drew Lock or any of the other quarterbacks the Giants have on the roster. The other one would be Ryder Anderson. Now, Ryder Anderson was an undrafted free agent in 2022. He's been on the practice squad more often, but from all accounts and things that I've been reading, that the Giants seem to like what he's been bringing to the table. He's a guy that could be on the defensive line. Maybe he carves out a role tonight, kind of gets into the backfield a little bit. Because the Giants could also, they've got the depth in the defensive line, but you want to bring some second and third strings to the mix. So we'll see what Anderson can do. I think he's got a shot. And then some of the rookies on defense. Do we see Tyler Nubin? Do we see Drew Phillips? Because those are going to be big pieces to the secondary. Do they get any action tonight? We know Neighbors won't, but I think the bigger things from this draft class are going to be what they do on the secondary than what they get at wide receiver. Receiver is good short term because you see what Daniel Jones needs. Long term, I think they need to find something in the secondary. When this pass rush doesn't get home, it could lead to nightmares. So I'm looking to see if any of those guys get into the mix here. That should be interesting. The other thing to watch tonight, and yes, in the NFL, you don't get craziness with the preseason in terms of play calls. Everything seems very vanilla. Everything's really basics, especially when you've got the starters not really playing. But Brian Daboll, of course, is calling plays. So you kind of want to see what Daboll can bring to the table, taking over for Mike Kafka. Mike Kafka is still on the staff, but Daboll's going to take a shot at calling plays. And Daboll's been a good offensive coordinator in his own right. So I can't really sit here and say that they're going to do a bad job necessarily. But I want to just kind of see what wrinkles he can bring into the mix for this group and how they kind of go about moving things around, if you will. But again, we don't look for preseason scores. We look for stats. We look for just the play on the field. So we'll see which Giants can make a name for themselves. But the name I always seem to remember from preseasons is Victor Cruz. I mean, Victor Cruz was a guy that nobody really heard of. Had a good game on Monday Night Football in the preseason. And all of a sudden, became a Giant that led to a Super Bowl. So you never know what can happen in these games. And that's what makes them fun. As much as you hate paying for them if you have the regular season ticket package and you have to pay for preseason, but that's the way it is. Taryn, thanks for the love, man. Of course, we're going to get to him later with the volleyball. That Brazil USA match this morning was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed watching it. USA getting the win. You can find out more on his show. Set Point is really good. And Jen B, Show of the Land. She waits for more Brett and Ayuk updates, but the Guardians crushing it in first place, even though they had a rough time with the Diamondbacks. We'll dive into baseball just a little bit later in the program. But as we get into the Giants, it's time for us to talk some Jets. Now, when you look at the Jets, they don't play tonight. They're going to play on Saturday. It is a noon kick. You got to love the noon kickoffs in the summer against Jane Daniels and the Washington Commanders. And Robert Saleh actually has some good things to say about the Commanders. So Mike Pat will definitely love what Robert Saleh has to say about that. That the Commanders can be a sneaky team in the NFC. And if they get the offensive line, I can see where he's coming from with that. That's really been their big issue. But we're not going to talk about the Commanders here. The big news out of Jets camp this week is Mike Williams is back off the PUP list, which allows him about a month to get ready for week 1. The Jets could use him in that receiving core with Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. They brought him in for the deep threat. It sounds like Aaron Rodgers is going to have his deep threat ready to go. And with Mike Williams, the key is health. I mean, this is a guy that when he's on the field, especially when he was with the Chargers, he is going to make plays. But that's the key. Can he stay on the field? Which is a lot of case with this Jet offense. Aaron Rodgers, of course, isn't going to play. So unfortunately, that is a little bit of a downer. But remember, Rodgers only played the third preseason game last year. He said even today, when they pulled him from practice because the weather is absolutely terrible, he might look to play against the Giants in the third preseason game, but he's not sure about that yet necessarily. A couple of Jets to watch. I'm looking at Jason Brownlee at wide receiver. I think he's a guy that could be a red zone target for them. Because remember, when you look at the Jets, they don't have a lot of height. That's why they also got Williams for the red zone. You can't just rely on Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin. So we'll see if Brownlee, who's been on the roster for a little bit, can kind of step up and get creative there for the Jets. The other two things, which rookie running back emerges this camp between Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State and Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. I'm naturally more of a fan of Allen just because I kind of like the physical runner to counteract Breece Hall. I think that's a big key for this team. But Davis can do both. Davis is kind of between the tackles guy as well. So they both have good skill sets. I think they could play an interesting factor for this team. And they have to find that backup behind Hall. Remember, in the past, they had Michael Carter. They don't have that anymore. And there's that kind of missing spot at that backup running back spot that they're going to rely on a rookie for. And then looking at safety. I think a key matchup there is going to be Jalen Key, the Mr. Irrelevant out of Alabama. He's a guy, of course, coming from Nick Saban's system. He's a good player. But another player to watch is Jared Bernard Converse. He was a sixth-round pick in 2023. Didn't get to be in training camp, and then had a foot injury that really limited him to just special teams last year. But it's clear the Jets like him in that spot. Another SEC caliber player. So let's see if he can do in his first preseason games. Does he step up and deliver to the table? That's a big thing I think for them. What helps the Jets though, when you think about it, go into their week one matchup with the 49ers is Christian McCaffrey right now having a calf strain. He's not going to play in the preseason, and all accounts could be limited for week one if he plays at all. So the Jets kind of catch a break, and they're watching the whole Brandon Ayuk saga play out, which nobody knows if he's going to be a 49er. Sounds like he won't be. It's just a matter of where he goes or where he wants to go. So you got San Fran in kind of a little turmoil right as the Jets are about to play them. And that's probably the best time the Jets could play the reigning NFC champions is that first game, where there's a lot of unknown, especially on the Jets side, because you didn't really get to see a lot of Aaron Rodgers last year. So there's no surprise, but there's some sort of mystery into what Nate Hackett has in store with Aaron Rodgers. We only saw the Nate Hackett playbook without Aaron Rodgers. What do we see with it? And I think a key guy to look for this year is Allen Lazard, who did nothing when Rodgers went down, but Aaron Rodgers is his guy. He's bound to make things happen. So we're a month away. Again, Giants and Vikings week one. We talk about how big a game that is for the Giants and the Jets as well. I think week one is bigger, though, for the Giants because I think they need to set the tone and get a win. The Jets, nobody would be surprised if they lost in San Francisco week one. I don't think you should panic if they do. But again, I think they're catching San Francisco at the right time, and that's a big key. So we'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to take our first time out. We'll come back. We'll talk baseball. Yankees are rolling. Mets are out west. Both teams in the thick of a pretty interesting pennant race over these last 50 games. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all this sports. We'll take a quick time out and be right back after this.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
Yes, I'm really interested in what the Packers do this year. We're back here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you. We're back here with you. Packers are fun. Like Jordan Love is interesting. And I think the Super Bowl matchup everybody seems to want is Jets and Packers, where you get that Aaron Rodgers kind of vibe. But we're going to move from football, move the gridiron to the diamond. And let's talk some Yankees. And we're going to start with this Yankee team that, again, we looked at that Phillies series last week as kind of a measuring stick and ended up sweeping the Phillies, which was big for them. They come home, take 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays. DJ LeMahieu gets a walk-off hit on Sunday. A little bit of the struggles with Toronto, and Toronto's not a good team, but they found a way to win a series. And then after a rain-out Tuesday, come back last night, get ahead of the Angels early. Luis Gil is able to give them 5 innings despite struggling with command. And then Will Warren, which I don't know what everybody on Yankee Twitter was expecting, where it's the kid's second start. It's raining. He's not going to have good grip. You just watch Gil struggle with grip. And Zach Neto hits a grand slam. There's nothing you could do. And look, if you're the Yankees, you just got to win series. And they'll try to do that tonight, weather permitting, against the Angels. And as they continue their 9-game homestand, your matchup for that one, Tyler Anderson, 8-10 with a 3.05 against Nestor Cortez, 5-9 with a 4.16. Cortez better at home than on the road, but that's the guy the Yankees need to find it because once Clark Schmidt comes back, there's going to be a roster crunch in that rotation if everybody stays healthy between Cortez, Schmidt, and Stroman. And we'll get into Marcus Stroman in a little bit, but he's a pitcher I think is going to be under the spotlight this weekend. when the Yankees host the reigning world champion Texas Rangers. But what's helping the Yankees right now is a couple of things. One is Giancarlo Stanton is back in the mix. Yes, Stanton hasn't been hitting, but nobody should be surprised by that. When Stanton comes back, especially if he doesn't get any rehab assignments, he's not going to necessarily be able to find it right away. He's a guy with rhythm. But I'm looking at two players the Yankees relying upon both for their current, present, and for their future. And one being Anthony Volpe, who since the All-Star break is hitting with a 953 OPS, 5 home runs, and 13 RBIs over his last 17 games. And the Yankees could use Anthony Volpe to figure out what's going on with the plate, because when they were clicking in the first couple months of the season, he was shining in the leadoff spot. Now, he hasn't been hitting leadoff anymore because the Yankees just can't seem to find that leadoff hitter. But if he's clicking toward the bottom of the order, it just rounds out the lineup much better. And the other guy is Austin Wells, who really, since his bad luck start to the year, has been one of the better offensive catchers in baseball. This is a guy drafted out of Arizona for his bat. And with Jose Trevino on the IL, Wells has been getting the bulk of the playing time because it's either him or Carlos Narvaez. And with Wells being able to shine at the plate, he's done a decent job catching. Teams haven't run on him as much as they did on Trevino. And he's called some decent games. And one of the things I remember, because when I was at Pinstripe Prospects, which is the formerly the site that covered the Yankees farm system, I interviewed Austin Wells' college coach, Jay Johnson, and a lot of what we talked about was his defense was improving. Now, he wasn't known for his defense, but this is a player that could figure it out and could catch at the major league level. When people thought they're going to make him a DH, he's going to be a Kyle Schwarber type, he hasn't been that. It's been a good thing to watch. So with Wells getting an opportunity, hey, this is your job now. You're going to get to play. He's taken full advantage of that. So it's been good to see. But there is a problem with the Yankee offense, and it's Aaron Judge. No, it's not Aaron Judge is struggling, because Aaron Judge is doing everything. He's got over 40 home runs, over 100 RBIs. He's doing his thing. But you saw Sunday. Blue Jays intentionally walked him 3 times. And my question is, where's every other Major League Baseball team not doing this? Clearly, he is the one guy that you need to pitch around or not face in this Yankee lineup. Juan Soto is going to take his walks because Juan Soto is a player that just has that plate discipline. Aaron Judge, you can tell, especially going back to that Mets series, when he was getting pitched around and then finally got pitched to, he got stunned. So you're trying to get Judge out of his rhythm. Now, I'm not one to take the intentional walk out of the game. I've seen debates like, well, in other sports, like we don't take the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands or Aaron Rodgers' hands. We don't take the ball out of Jalen Brunson's hands in the fourth quarter with the Knicks games. But in baseball, you can intentionally walk the guy that you don't want to face. And look, plain and simple, guys behind Judge have to hit, whether it's Wells, whether it's Stanton, whether it's Verdugo, whether it's Torres. They've got to deliver. Plain and simple. So I would rather look at that than try to all of a sudden tweak baseball's intentional walk system. I don't think it needs to be tweaked. It didn't get tweaked when Barry Bonds was getting intentionally walk the entire time. And Aaron Judge right now is the closest thing this sport has to Barry Bonds. Because he's a must-watch whenever he comes to the plate. And if he gets one mistake pitch down the middle, he's taken out of the ballpark. I mean, he's been on that kind of a roll. So if you want to make a move for the Yankees, you could put Soto in behind him. You could put Judge second, Soto third. You could put Soto first, Judge second. You could put Judge lead off like they did 2 years ago, and he broke the AL home run record. I don't think they need to do that yet, though. I don't like when the Yankees try to mess with something that's still working. And offensively, at least they're starting to find it again. Ever since the Red Sox series, this has been a much different team. It's ironic because after the first Red Sox series a couple months ago, they started losing. Now, since that last Fenway series, they took 2 or 3, they're starting to win again. I think they've found somewhat what they're looking for. Like you've seen Grisham excel, Verdugo starting to play a little bit better. There is one issue that the Yankees have to address still, and it's Gleyber Torres, who was benched Friday for not hustling. Thought he hit a home run, only got to first base. And look, we talked about Gleyber Torres, and I don't want to rip him a new one because we did that a few weeks ago. And I still blame the manager for it because there's no repercussions. You see Verdugo do it sometimes. You see plenty of players in Major League Baseball that don't hustle to first base, and it's not corrected. And what do we teach our kids? We'll talk about the Little League World Series in a little bit. We teach our kids, hey, hustle to first base, or when you coach out there, like, and then you watch these games and they're not, where they think they hit home runs and they want to go crazy and they think they hit a homer and it's just a fly ball to right. It makes you look stupid, doesn't it? And I thought Glaber handled it very well. That's why I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden start to rip Glaber Torres. But it's clear he didn't learn the lesson the first time unless it wasn't communicated that he got benched for that the first time. Marcus Stroman does get his start pushed back to Sunday, and the Yankees will take on the Texas Rangers this weekend. Stroman has to find it. Now, they pushed it back for mechanical reasons. Want to see if they can fix that. Remember, last year with the Cubs, he was really good in the first half and then got injured. So you always worry with him with that. Carlos Rodon's going to go on Friday against Texas. It's a 7:05 first pitch. Then a good matchup Saturday, Nathan Eovaldi against Garrett Cole. And Cole looked pretty good coming back from the general body fatigues that he had. They still need him to click, but I think so far he's done some good things. And then Sunday, it's Marcus Stroman against Andrew Heaney. Heaney 4-11 with an ERA under 4. So it's a solid matchup for the Yankees to wrap up this homestand. They'll then head to Chicago to take on the Grady Sizemore-led White Sox. I wonder if Jen B is here. Is that to be weird, Jen, for Grady Sizemore to be managing a division rival, even if it's just for the interim? Because like my memories of Grady Sizemore are when the then Cleveland Indians beat the Yankees in 07 and was hitting home runs off Chen-Ming Wang in the ALDS. But so even though Sizemore is trying to prevent the worst season in the history of baseball from happening, that's a little bit odd. But the Yankees will hopefully, when we come back, which we'll talk about later when our next show will be, they'll hopefully kick the snot out of the White Sox. Because when you watch these like games against the White Sox, and I promise I'm going to stop ragging on Adam Karnick's Chicago White Sox here. You can't enjoy them because if you win 6-5, it feels like you lost. Like that's the sad part of things. But the Yankees will try to wrap it up the homestand and then head to Chicago. So that'll be fun for them. Let's get into the Mets, who of course are on what I call the 10-game West Coast circus right now because it's been a weird road trip for them. They went out to Los Angeles, couldn't hit with men scoring position. They lost 2 or 3 to the Angels. Went to St. Louis, which I thought was the bigger game than the Angels series. They had to beat the Cardinals to get one of these tiebreakers in the National League. Sean Manaea was fantastic, and we'll get to him in a little bit. He was everything as advertised against St. Louis. Mets won that game 6-0. They've since gone out to Colorado. Their bats aren't hitting right now. They lost the first game of that series where Luis Severino was okay. He didn't light the world on fire, but his velocity came back. But they lost 6-3 despite scoring 2 runs in the second. And then last night, they get the win 5-3, scoring 3 runs in the top of the 9th. But the Rockies starter left the game in the second inning, and they couldn't break through offensively. And we'll dive into that in a minute, why to me it's still a little bit of a concern. But let's talk Sean Manaea. I think this is the pitcher that on the season, 8-4, 3.30 ERA. And against St. Louis, he went 7 innings, allowed just 6 hits, and struck out 10. Manaea, both in this start and the start prior against Minnesota, has looked like an ace. And if you look at his numbers, they wrote about this over on Mesmerized a few weeks ago. When you look at July, Sean Manaea was one of the better pitchers in the National League. He was right up there with Dylan Cease and Yu Darvish. Well, not Yu Darvish, but Dylan Cease and some of these top pitchers in the National League. Like he was tops in ERA and wins and all these things. Opposing batting average against was like under 200 or something like that. That was the pitcher the Mets gave a player option for next year. And right now there's a lot of holes and question marks for the Mets rotation in 25. If Manaea pitches well enough and the Mets get into the playoffs, he's going to opt out because he's going to get money. The Mets took a prove-it contract on him. And I think he's done that. I think he's been their most consistent pitcher because Luis Severino, you've seen flashes, but not consistency. Quintana has been okay. David Peterson has been okay, but I can't say they've been great. I think Manaea has shown great. Good to great with him. and he stepped up and the Mets needed him on Monday. The other guy who stepped up on the mound, Jose Buto. He's got a .87 ERA out of the bullpen. And at the deadline, we talked about whether the Mets going to put him in the rotation or they're going to keep him in the pen. And they got Paul Blackburn from the A's, I think, to kind of keep Buto in the pen. Blackburn looked really good last night. And in 2 starts against the Angels and Rockies, yes, those 2 are the worst teams in baseball, but he's given them exactly what they've been looking for. 6 innings and some consistency. Something in the back end. It kicks Tyler McGill out of the rotation. And for right now, I think they've got 5 solid starters. Not great, but 5 solid starters that can carry them over the last 6 to 7 weeks of the year. Speaking of the offense, and Ralph talks about it here in the chat. Any thoughts on why Francisco Alvarez is in such a slump? Keep in mind, Alvarez had an injury earlier in the year, and you could see maybe the guy's trying to do too much at the plate. And I don't really panic when he's not in the lineup because Luis Torrens has done a good job as the backup, but I sometimes don't notice that Alvarez is not there. But when you look at the Mets scoring 6 runs one day, then 3 runs the next, then 8 runs next day, then 2 runs the next, there's just no consistency right now. When Alvarez was clicking for a brief moment when he came back, there was the consistency you were looking for. And you wonder, did everybody just get hot at the same time and now they're all getting cold again? When Dora got the big hit last night in the 9th, Jesse Winker had a solid game. Had 3 hits last night. I think his one of the better games of the Met. And they could be getting some reinforcements back. Starling Marte is on a rehab assignment. He should be back really soon. And it kind of creates an outfield roster crunch when you look at using the Ben Gamels, the Tyrone Taylors, Bader. Marte's got to stay healthy. But when Starling Marte's healthy and does what he did a couple years ago, it changes the offense. But for right now, they just need to find a way to stay hot and get through this road trip because today is a huge, huge game. And I'm not saying if they lose, they're done because they're absolutely not. But you cannot lose 2 out of 3 to Colorado. You can't. And I know that Valheim Musing's going to get back to this, and if they do lose and say, well, you did, but you can't lose this game. David Peterson's on the mound against Austin Gomber. Lindor leading off, Iglesias batting second, JD Martinez the DH, Pete Alonso's at first, Vientos is at third, Torrens is behind the plate, McNeil's in right, Bader's in center, and Taylor's in left. You can't lose to Austin Gomber. You just can't. Because if you win today, you're 4-3. You go to Seattle tomorrow. Mariners are a good team, competing for the AL West. You can find a way to steal one of those games. You finish 5-5. I think 5-5 for this road trip is pretty good. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm not going to complain about 5-5, especially when they had to play in 4 different cities. But they are struggling in scoring position. The team that is worse than them over the last month in those situations are the White Sox. They've got to find a way to get those clutch hits. But they are getting some help around the league. Not from the Padres and Diamondbacks, because the Padres just keep winning. They're winning right now against Ralph's Pittsburgh Pirates, which is not good for the Pirates. Diamondbacks, of course, just swept Cleveland. They're playing the Phillies tonight. But the Braves are spiraling, man. They're down 13-3 to Milwaukee in the 6th inning. If that score holds, the Braves and Mets are tied for the 3rd wild card spot. And right now, it's hard to see a team catching Arizona, especially getting the reinforcements in the rotation. San Diego, I think, is also getting reinforcements that they look much better and all the news they made at the deadline. Right now, I think between the Mets, the Braves, the Cardinals, you got to throw the Giants back in there, man. They're 3.5 back. Blake Snell's looked really good. There were no hitters a couple starts ago. And then I'll keep the Pirates in there for right now, but really the Mets are competing with 3 other teams for 1 spot. If you consider that Arizona and San Diego are probably going to get in, that's where the Mets stand right now. You want to look at the Yankees, tied right now with the Orioles. Baltimore's been crushing Toronto as of late. If you look at the Orioles coming up, they've got Tampa Bay for 3. But it seems like whenever the Yankees win, the Orioles win, and when the Yankees lose, the Orioles lose. So you can never really gain ground, but at the same time, the Yankee fans have to be thankful because when they were going on their tailspin, the Orioles couldn't pull away from the division. And if you look at the wild card, right now. You have about a 5-game lead in the loss column on the Red Sox. Minnesota and Kansas City right now hold those other wild card spots. But I would think the Red Sox will catch one of them because eventually Minnesota and Kansas City are to stop playing the Central. I think that's been really the big key to their success. So that's something we're going to follow over the last 6 weeks of the season. Mets are in Seattle this weekend, then they'll go to Oakland. We'll give you the pitching matchups if we can. I don't think Seattle unveiled their matchups yet, but it's Quintana on Friday. That's a 10-10 first pitch. Saturday, Sean Manaea will go at 9:40. And then Sunday Night Baseball this week, and Luis Severino will pitch in that game. So Mets Mariners. Mariners think it's the first time they've had Sunday Night Baseball in a long time at home. So that should be a fun atmosphere out at T-Mobile Park. So we'll take one more break. We'll come back and we'll do some smaller topics. Jalen Brunson we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Liberty, who are not in action, but their players are and their coaches. The NYCFC, and a fun matchup for Little League that we'll get into. Give some love to some of the local teams here in the area. You're listening to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. One more break, and we'll be right back after this.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
The Extra Mile, one of the great shows here on the network on Thursday. We've got 3 more shows coming for you later today. Just in a couple hours, the Seattle Sideline with Nathan Sheets, one of our newer shows, which I think is fantastic. So we'll check out that. Magic City Scoreboard with JB coming up at 7. And then, of course, the Extra Mile coming up at 8 o'clock. So we have a couple of really good shows. We're debuting lots of new shows on the network, which is a lot of fun. Be sure to check that out. Ricky Keeler back with you. IE Sports Radio, New York State Sports, IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ralph saying, sad to say the Pirates season is about to wash off the deck. Yeah, I think the bigger thing, at least from a Met perspective, is to take a team out of the wild card race. And a Yankee perspective, I keep looking at this too. Yankees end the year with the Pirates at home, and the Yankees might need those games. I still wonder if Paul Skeens is going to pitch in those games. And if he doesn't, that's I think a huge relief to the Yankees as a whole. So that's why I think we've been following the Pirates, and of course we'll dive into some more baseball coming up. But let's talk a little bit of Liberty and a little bit of WNBA with the Olympics going on. Of course, out in Paris, the U.S. is going to be in the semifinals tomorrow against Australia at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. The U.S. has, of course, won 59 straight games. They'll look to get 60 in a row. And what's interesting about this U.S.-Australia matchup, of course, the U.S. has Brittany Grant, Serena Ionescu, and Brianna Stewart from the Liberty. Australia has Liberty coach Sandy Brondello. So you get a little player versus coach action, which is one of those rare things that you get. The other semifinal being France against Belgium in that second one. And I love the way that the U.S. has looked in these Olympics. Brianna Stewart, I think it's been everything as advertised so far. She's had a couple really good games for this team. Inescu was quiet yesterday against Nigeria, but really besides that, I think she's looked strong in this tournament. And more importantly for the Liberty, those two are staying healthy. Because again, their mission, as much as they want to win that gold medal and get it and keep that win streak alive, their goal has got to be to get healthy and get back to win a WNBA championship. Because this year is a boom or bust year for them after getting to the final last year. But if you look at Brianna Stewart so far, she's averaging 18 points per game, 5 rebounds in this tournament. She was excellent against Belgium, 8 of 14, 26 points. Against Germany, 13 points. Against Nigeria yesterday, she had 13, and in Japan, she had 22. So through those 4 games, she has had a solid run. Her and Asia Wilson. Asia Wilson's unstoppable for this team. And even when you look across the other countries, where the Liberty have other players playing, Maria Johannes, who, remember, isn't with the Liberty because she wanted to play for her home country. She's been hitting 3-pointers left and right. She had 5 threes the other day. If the Liberty can get her back for the end of the year, another sharpshooter into the mix, really changes what this team can do going forward. And then you look at Germany, Nayara Sabali, who was injured for the bulk of the first half, came back, was hitting free throws, doing her thing. Leonie Fibic was looking good and getting some star action for the German side. I think if you're a Liberty fan, you're thrilled with how your players are looking. Especially on this 1 month break, they'll come back and they'll be ready to go. So, U.S. against Australia, that game is tomorrow. Of course, the U.S. men will play right after this show against Serbia in a rematch of group play as the U.S. men try to get to the gold medal game. Hopefully they do it. Again, this Olympics has been so much fun. We talked about the swimming last week. The track has been really good to watch. Especially, I was really impressed by the 100-meter race with Noah Lyles. So be sure to check out the Olympics if you can. It's been a lot of fun, I think, for all sides to watch that. NYCFC, we're going to get into, and they are in the Leagues Cup knockout stage. That matchup is going to take place tonight. Well, not tonight, actually, tomorrow night. They will take on the New England Revolution at Gillette Stadium. So that is going to be one where I'm looking at this game and I'm a little bit disappointed in NYCFC. They were up 2-0 on Cincinnati. They were already in the knockout round, but then they end up allowing 4 unanswered goals. And to me, that just can't happen. They've got to find a way to fix that. We'll see if they do, but right now I'm looking at NYCFC, and to me, they need to fix just a little bit more in that last few minutes, because they got the goals from Santi Rodriguez in the 25th minute, and then Mijatovic, who's that young player that we talked about in the preview earlier this year, got up 2-0, and then since he gets a goal in the 79th minute, 81st minute, 86th minute, and 89th minute, you cannot allow 4 goals in 10 minutes. I mean, I watch soccer trying to hope for a goal or two every 30 minutes, and I'm seeing 4 goals in a 10-minute span. You don't see that often. So they really need to tighten things up defensively. They go 0-1-1 in group play, but it's enough for them to get in the knockout stage. Again, they are at New England. Now, these two teams have played twice this year. New York won 2-0 back on April 13th, and then they won 1-0 back on May 25th. New England has been a much better team than when they began the year. They won in penalties against Nashville in their last game. And then when you look back at their last few results, in July, they lost 2-0 to Seattle. They lost 3-1 to Orlando. They lost 5-1 to Philly, tied Dallas, and then won in their group stage match 1-0. So this is a winnable game for New York, albeit on the road. This is one they should take and try to advance into the round of 16. So winnable game in front of them. They had to win penalties in their first group match, and then the second match, they couldn't find a way to keep a 2-goal lead. Hopefully, they've learned their lessons from that and find a way to win. I believe right now they're on ESPN Bet, they're plus 115. So they are favored, even though they are on the road. We'll see if they're able to take advantage of that. Shout out to Jalen Brunson being named the New York Knicks captain. Now, I don't really. Here's the thing with basketball captains. I don't necessarily look at a situation with the Knicks where, like basketball, I'm looking for who the captain is. Like baseball, we all know Derek Jeter, Aaron Judge. Mets case, David Wright. You kind of look for a captain. Hockey, you have a couple of captains you tend to know. But I think from a just a symbolic perspective, Jalen Brunson has earned the captain role. Now I don't know if they're gonna put a C on the basketball jersey. I don't know. Let me know here in the chat. Would you want to put C Jalen Brunson have a C on the basketball jersey? Does it make that big a difference? Last Nick captain, I believe, was Lance Thomas a few years ago in the lean years of this team and this organization. But you look at all Jalen Brunson has sacrificed to make that to come back and try to win a championship, leaving all that money on the table to accomplish the goals he wants to. Like he has become, we talked about it when he got the mega extension, has become a star in New York and become the star in New York. Now I think Aaron Judge is close. I think it's more forgivable if Brunson doesn't win a championship compared to if Judge doesn't win a championship. Because even though Aaron Judge has the home run record and he does these amazing things and he's on track for a Hall of Fame career if he stays healthy, this generation will remember if he wins a championship or not. That's kind of just the way it is with the Yankee fan base. They'll look back at the 2017 against the Astros or 2019 against the Astros or 22 against the Astros. Even the Rays series during the COVID year that they couldn't win. And they'll nitpick at Aaron Judge's postseasons, like it or not. It's what they did with A-Rod. Albeit A-Rod not the homegrown player that Judge is, but Judge will start to hear it from some critics, and that's something that I think he can get over. Sure, he'll have a good legacy, but that's something people will remember. It's not like quite Donnie Baseball when he didn't get to the World Series, and he's really loved for that because he was on such bad Yankee teams. I think Jalen Brunson is kind of that same ilk where he was the guy that came here, and the Knicks have all of a sudden resurged as a notable brand in the NBA again. And so to me, I don't think it matters if the Knicks necessarily win a championship or not. For Jalen Brunson to have a good career here, he already has. Now, will the pressure be on him a little bit more, especially wearing the C, or not wearing the C, but having the title of the C? Yeah, absolutely. But this is a player that, since he's been in college basketball at Villanova, has embraced the pressure, lives for the pressure. Every big stage he was on, he thrived. That's why I was kind of surprised that he went so late in the NBA draft when he did. And then kind of had to sit behind Luka, really, and when he was with Dallas. So I don't think it's really the same things necessarily. Like there's no basketball captain significance. But at the same time, I think it's a really cool moment for him. Now, on another Knicks note, I know a lot of people have looked at the Utah Jazz giving Lauri Markkanen the contract that he was looking for, and kind of waiting to see if the Knicks would pay Julius Randle. Now, if we look at the Lauri Markkanen stuff, he got a 5-year, $238 million deal with the Jazz contract extension, $220 million in new money. So the question I saw, it popped up on both my X and the New York State X account, is it time to pay Julius Randle? I still think Randle should still be considered for trade purposes. So I think he's one of your only big salaries left that you can deal to match. So I think any significant deal the Knicks make, if they do make one at all, between now and let's say the trade deadline, would involve him. But you could argue that really the start of this return to relevance for the Knicks was when they brought in Julius Randle. And when he's healthy, he makes an impact on this team. You can tell they needed him in the postseason last year. You can tell they needed him in the postseason a couple of years ago. And is the health the one reason that they're not giving giving Julius Randle the money? Not quite sure. They don't have a lot of cap space right now. which makes you think that that's going to be possible. You know, they did get below the second apron, which is big. We talked about last week the re-signing of Precious Achua, which was big. But is there money left for Randall? I'm not sure there is. The Jazz have the money. Like Jazz traded away Donovan Mitchell, but they already now give marketing that money. So they have that in place. They have to figure out what's next for them. And I think for the Knicks, Julius Randle, his future might be with another team before I think about giving him the extra money. Now, we want to get into, as we wrap it up here, a little bit of fun, light story. One of my favorite events when it comes to sports in general, especially in the summer, is the Little League World Series. I think we talked about it a little bit last week, just in case you missed it. The Metro Regional Tournament is going on. And Friday night out in Bristol, Connecticut, as Ralph chimed in a little bit earlier, it'll be the Metro Championship, Morristown, New Jersey, who has looked really good. I mean, they beat New York, which of course is my hometown, Staten Island, 11-1. They will play Friday night. The winner of that game goes to Williamsport in the Little League World Series. Now, Staten Island has been there a couple of times. Wouldn't be the first they were to get in. Mid Island made it. I can't remember the year offhand. I remember I went to the Little League World Series that year. Not as a player, not as a coach or anything, but I went as a fan with the team. And it was one of the best sports experiences I've ever had. It was absolutely outstanding. And nothing is better than watching watching these two teams get a chance to a win. A win would get them their dream. Their now baseball dream. I know they were probably all dreaming of maybe one day being in the majors, but a chance to go to Williamsport in the Little League World Series. This is so much fun. New York had a dramatic win yesterday. They were down 5-3 to Connecticut in the fourth inning. Of course, these are 6-inning games, and they rallied to tie it in the fifth. Got a walk-off hit with bases loaded in the seventh as they went to extra innings. And this is the Staten Island team that I was watching. Shout out to I was watching on YouTube their state tournament. I know the broadcast people do. They do a really good job. This is a team that has good pitching, can hit, but New Jersey has been, as I said, excellent in this tournament so far. Morristown has absolutely got the complete. They can hit, they can pitch, they can do a little bit of everything. So I expect this game to be a classic game. I'm not going to break it down like I would break down the Yankees and the Mets, but it's a fun game. Now, I remember New Jersey versus Mid Island in 07. Mid Island had a walk-off home run to go to the Little League World Series. I think the kid's name was Frank Smith. I don't really remember. But these are moments that if you're in that, like, even if you're not, like, you don't know a player in that town, just when your city is in the Little League World Series, it's a sense of pride. Like, Staten Island won a long time ago. I think I think Mid Island was the last to win in like the 60s or something. But it's a sense of pride in your community. And I know that the community here in Staten Island is behind South Shore Little League, and we'll see if they can find a way to get a win. But if they don't, Morristown, I think, could be a really dark horse team in Williamsport. We're gonna see what happens with that. So that's I think I want to say 7:00 tomorrow on ESPN. I think ESPN does a good job now putting the regional games on. I mean, to me, that's a big deal. Like used to be, you only got the final, and now you're getting every game of pool play practically either on ESPN or ESPN Plus. Good thing for your family members, of course. If you have your son or daughter playing, and you tell your family, "Hey, turn on ESPN Plus and watch the games." That's always fun. So good luck to both those teams. We'll talk about the winner on next week's show, which of course, so we're going to switch it up a little bit next week. Next week, we're going to go live on Wednesday. Wednesday night, we're going to go back to primetime in New York. I have sort of personal thing. I'm moving to a different place where I'll have a new studio, which will be really cool. Won't be a high def studio, but it'll be an interesting studio. So that is why we're going to do the show Wednesday night. We'll recap the Giants game against the Lions tonight. We'll recap the Jets Commanders week 1 in the preseason. So we'll start to do some football breakdowns on the show. That'll be really, really cool. Yankees, of course, we'll talk about their homestand and their games with the White Sox. Mets are home after the series in Seattle. They play the A's. Another not so good baseball team, but this is going to be a fun next few weeks for both the baseball teams. Now you get the football teams involved. And pretty soon, in a couple weeks, we get the college football teams involved. We'll talk some Syracuse. We'll talk Rutgers. We'll talk Army. We're only a couple weeks away from previewing the college football season and getting you set for week 1 of those matchups. So that's going to be your home for all New York sports. And as I mentioned, we have some really good shows coming up tonight. 3 shows going on. But again, next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then after that, I will have an update on what's going on with future shows. But we're going to stay here on the network. It's so much fun. I love doing this show. We're almost 50 episodes in. And I thank you, the listener out there. You guys make this a fun show to do. Hope you don't find my takes too crazy. But again, it's New York. We're the Big Apple. We have big sports takes. It's what we're about. So as we wrap up the show here today, I wanted to say special thanks to all of our listeners here. Thanks to Larry. Thanks to Ralph, Alden, to Taryn, to Jen. A lot of good things going on. Again, Giants tonight against the Lions. Not a lot of starters playing, but let's go about the preseason. Which backups make a name for themselves? Which players sneak their way onto an NFL roster? We're going to talk about all those things. Yankees, can they keep their winning race going? I for first place with the Orioles. Games they should win. Angels are bad. Texas is okay. They get the White Sox to stink. They've got one of the easier schedules in baseball. They've got to take advantage of it because September is not going to be easy. The Mets, can they survive this 10-game road trip? Big game today with Colorado. They need to win this game. Got to get 2 out of 3. Stay over 500 on the strip. Keep and get those positive vibes back they had before the craziness to travel, not using the travel as an excuse. The Liberty, of course, with the semifinal matchup for Team USA tomorrow against Australia. It'll be fun to watch Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu against their coach. Their coach have a good game plan for her against the defender players rather than game plan to help her players. There's so much going on with that. Jalen Brunson, congrats on being the Knicks captain. Of course, there's not going to be a lot of Knicks and Rangers news over the next couple of months for Devils or Islanders, but we'll get to college football. And again, tomorrow night, we have League Cup, NYCFC against New England, and the New York City Football Club move on in League Cup. And Morristown, New Jersey, Staten New York, in the Metro Regional Final. The winner advances to Williamsport and the Little League World Series. Thanks to everybody that tuned in today. For all of us here at IE Sports Radio and for all of us here at the network, I'm Ricky Taylor saying have a great rest of your week. Stay dry with all the rain going on, and I'll see you back here on Wednesday. Stay tuned, everybody.